Do you ever have one of those times with technology where you're just ready to take your PC, laptop, printer, whatever it is, and you just want to chuck it out the window? Well, that's one of those times. So I'm redoing this video for like the third time now. And hopefully this will be for the last time, because it's meant to be a short video. So let's hope, okay? Let's all hope, because I don't want to throw this PC out the window. So Trump signed an executive order to develop and deploy the Iron Dome in the United States. So I think most people at least have a very broad understanding. You know, they equate Iron Dome with Israel, and no, it's not a natural physical dome. There's not an Iron Dome over Israel. Some people kind of get that confused. And by God, I think that's the most amazing thing ever. But it's a defense system. And so one of the things I think people in the defense kind of community, especially online defense community, who are a bunch of balloons, you know, useless balloons a lot of times, but they have been kind of making a lot of chatter today saying about the specific Iron Dome system. I think for the majority of people, when they think of Israelis' missile defense systems, they think of the Iron Dome as that. So they're not thinking of it as this specific Iron Dome system. They're thinking Iron Dome as everything that they have that's a missile defense system. The Iron Dome system is very specific. It's a part of a layered missile defense system that includes the Iron Beam's not deployed yet. It's supposed to be deployed as a direct energy weapon. It's not going to be deployed till October of this year. But it includes the Arrows 2 and 3, the David Sling. I think they still have Patriot defense systems and Hawks. So it's a layered missile defense system and made up of many things. Iron Dome itself is actually made to intercept short-range, kind of crude rockets, the kind of things you'd have fired from a militant third-party actors like Hamas or Hezbollah. And it's not designed to intercept ballistic missiles or anything you would have from a state-sponsored party. It's artillery, rockets. I mean, it still would have functionality in a battlefield situation, even with a deployed, what I consider first-party actor. And so, Trump, and again, I don't want to speak for what he's saying here in this executive order, and I haven't had too much of a chance because it just came out today to study it. So he could be talking about deploying an Iron Dome-like system and field operations with U.S. troops. But I don't think that's what he's getting at. And so the usability for the United States itself, if we're talking about domestic homeland protection, would be very, very limited. We don't have active third parties outside of some very limited terrorist attacks that would utilize something like that. Those kind of rocket attacks like that. Perhaps you could say in some, James Cameron type film, depending on how this goes with his wanting to take on the cartels with U.S. military, that maybe they'd start firing rockets across the border in some fantasy land or whatever, and you could have some utility there. But even then, it's not really comparable with Israel. Israel's a very small country. I mean, Texas probably bigger than the entirety of Israel. And, our border area with Texas and Mexico and some others, it's also very sparsely populated along many, many stretches of it. Not all. I know there's cities there, so don't start typing away at the keyboard with your actuallys. Some Smithwick's red, by the way, if you're wondering. So I think what he's referring to is just a more robust layered defense. So Israel, for instance, they haven't deployed the Iron Beam yet, but that's a direct energy weapon. But they have the Arrows 2, which is, kind of a medium or short range ballistic missile defense system. Arrow 3, which is designed up to an ICBM, although it's never operationally used that, of course, because nobody's fired an ICBM except maybe Russia, and that was probably more likely an intermediate ballistic missile, not an ICBM, outside of testing. And they have David Sling, which would be, again, medium. I want to say is intermediate range. Let's see here. Let me take a look at my thing. Not sure. I have to come back to that because there's a comparison here. Looking at it. Oh, there it is. No, short and medium range, not intermediate range. And so the United States has relatively equivalency of those. They have the ground-based mid-course interceptor sites in Alaska and California. There's 44 interceptor missiles, and those are designed to intercept ICBMs. And they are designed to do it exo-atmosphere during the mid-course phase. So with an ICBM or any ballistic missiles, 3 phases. It goes up, over, and down. I always like to keep it in simple terms. And going over parts of the mid-course phase, and that's why they call it the mid-course interceptor. It's not designed with the capability of preventing an all-out nuclear attack from Russia, China, or any other state with a decent size deployed nuclear arsenal. It's designed to prevent an attack from a rogue state. They also have the THAAD system, which is the designed to intercept up to an intermediate range ballistic missile in the terminal phase. That's the phase when it's coming down at a very high speed. And a THAAD is designed to intercept that. And I should say that there's different kinds of interception. There's blast interception, so it's going to go up, get close to it, and blast and try and knock it out. And there's kinetic kill vehicle, which is meant to actually strike and hit the incoming missile. So, for example, Patriot system, which is designed for short or medium range ballistic missiles and has shown at least some capability for hypersonics, depending on how you define a hypersonic. And it's really performed above. It's overperformed compared to what the specs are. It's a kill vehicle. It's meant to strike. So, like an Aegis SM-6, which is a naval variant deployed on warships, and it's a terminal interceptor. So it's similar to a THAAD. It's designed to knock it out with a blast. And so we have THAAD, we have Patriot, we have ground-based mid-course interceptor, and we have naval variants of similarity. So we have the SM-6, which again was to do the terminal phase interception. We have the SM-3, which is mid-course interceptor, which has been tested with an ICBM-like thing and successfully intercepted it. And again, those are naval-based, although there is Aegis ashore we deployed in Europe. And we could potentially, and I think Hawaii, I'd have to check if it's still there, but I believe it is. So those do have some land-based variants, but they're mainly naval deployed on Arleigh Burkes and ballistic missile defense ships. So what is he talking about? Increasing the counts of those? Possibly. One of the things, we have a hard enough time crewing some of those THAAD sites and Patriot sites. Military recruitment's tough right now. So you can create more of these, but you got to have qualified technicians to operate them. And those have viability because, they could be intercepting, weapons that actually could hit the United States from a bad actor. But the main one, of course, would be defense against ICBMs or sub-launch ballistic missiles. So one of the possibilities we could see here, and I'm going to do a full video on it, is, and I'm curious, are they going to try to pursue something similar to the Brilliant Pebbles concept? And that's what I'd like to know. And so what's Brilliant Pebbles? This was a concept that kind of came about during the so-called Star Wars initiative during Ronald Reagan's tenure, which was really the strategic defense initiative. Out of all the programs they looked at, and they tried to, because the technology just wasn't there, the cost would have been astronomical, this was the only one that really was considered viable. The problem was, again, the technology probably still wasn't there, and then the Cold War ended, so it kind of lowered the use for it. And the idea is basically you would have just hundreds of these missiles, satellites, and they would be positioned over an enemy actor, state, or whatever you want to call it. And I'm keeping this very high level, man. It's more technical. I'm going to do a whole video on it. But if we detect launches, they will shoot off and destroy the missiles as they're trying to be launched up. And again, it's very high level. Leave a comment, if you want to say, actually, it's this, because it's very viable. Trust me, this is kind of a stupid version. I'm going to do a whole video on it. With Starlink and other stuff, it's a viable option now. Should we take it? That's the other question you're going to have to ask yourself. And that's a harder one to answer because it's considered very destabilizing. Why? Because if another country feels like their nuclear arsenal is no longer a threat, then they're going to feel vulnerable. So if Russia feels like their weapons aren't going to, and what are they going to do? They're going to try to design more weapons to defeat whatever system you put out. Sometimes it just means putting more weapons out there. So one way to defeat any missile defense system is to oversaturate it. You're only going to have a limited number. The other way is to look at ways that they wouldn't be vulnerable. So for like a Brilliant Pebbles system, it's really good if you're launching up. But what if you're using like a torpedo-like delivery system, like the so-called Poseidon weapon system, which is, God, it's annoying because people are talking about these 500-foot radioactive waves and 500 megaton, or it's so blown out of proportion, those wonder weapons from 2018. But it is viable. I mean, it's just a torpedo with a warhead on it. It's not some magic thing. I mean, it's an unmanned torpedo. So you could say it's unmanned underwater drone or whatever. But what if they start deploying more of those? Because they feel like, well, if their system's vulnerable to Brilliant Pebbles, but those won't be. There's other things. And that's where you get into that danger. And it becomes a race of developing a technology or capability or numbers. And then now you have more and more of these systems out there that are going to kill lots of people if we're ever utilized. So ballistic missile defense, in a lot of times, especially for large-scale ballistic missile defense, is considered very destabilizing. So it's something we have to think about. It'll be interesting to see what happens with this. Is this going to be more ground-based mid-course interceptors? Is it going to be utilizing arrows like 2 or 3 or David Sling in the United States? Because those weapon systems were jointly developed with Raytheon and Israeli firms. And so, I mean, it is a viable thing. Hey, we helped develop these. Why are we not utilizing them here in the United States? Well, then the question is going to be, though, is the Arrow 3 any more effective than the ground-based mid-course interceptor? If it's not, then there's no point. Just do more, ground-based mid-course interceptors, or the next generation, which is in development now. So we're going to be replacing the current ones with the next generation interceptor, which is already in development. So it does bring about questions. Is it just simply putting more funding into our current systems, or is it to utilize Israeli systems? Or the joint Israeli-U.S. systems that we haven't deployed ourselves, or is it going to be new systems? So let's stay tuned. I think the most interesting prospect would be the Brilliant Pebbles, but it does frighten me that it'll lead to a new atomic race to try to counteract those things. So we'll see. But stay tuned. There'll be a video about the Brilliant Pebbles system because I think it is a very interesting concept. So that'll probably be my next video. So have a great day, everybody. Enjoy.